Duke Nukem, Eric Swalwell, wants to take your guns. And if you don't hand them over to him, he'll put you in jail. Bernie Sanders wants to take your money, and if you don't hand it over to him, he'll put you in jail. Fox News moves more to the left, probably because they're afraid to be put in jail. Me, I'm running on no sleep. Wish I could be put in jail just to catch a nap. Let's get to it. Oh, what a fine day it is this Wednesday morning. Got my coffee ready. I just did not get much sleep last night. You ever have those nights where it's just, you can't fall asleep? And when you do, once you wake up, it's over. You're up for the night. Yeah, that was me. I've been up since about 1 a.m. But I got ahead of myself on articles, so that's a plus. However, enough of me complaining, because we got to talk about all that jailing that's about to happen when the Democrats take power. And I think we need to start with none other than Mr. Bernard Sanders. Crazy Commie Bernie. Crazy Commie Bernie. So, Bernie Sanders, he appears on Fox News for his town hall. And during this town hall, which, by the way, was rather shocking because every Democrat has turned down going to the Fox News town hall, even the DNC refuses to allow the Democrats to do a primary debate on Fox News. But Bernie Sanders goes on to Fox News and he starts the town hall and discusses all these policies, and he was getting pressed more than Democrats usually get pressed when it comes to their policies. Bernie Sanders was getting pressed by Martha McSally, not as much by Bret Baier. The fact that Fox News actually allowed Bernie to come on, I actually don't like. I'm not a big fan of it. I think that we're in a time frame when society is divided and it's just an all-out war. And trying to show that this isn't a war, that you're okay with pandering a little to the other side or try to play a different game, probably won't be the best tactic. Now, they were too nice to Bernie throughout this whole thing. Martha McSally did try to press him, and during this debate, they discussed Bernie Sanders' tax returns, because Bernie Sanders released the last 10 years of his tax returns. But here's a clip, though, in Fox News where Martha McSally actually pressured Bernie about his wanting to raise taxes, because Bernie wants to raise taxes up to 52% for the elite, the 1%. And Bernie, as we know from his tax returns, is one of the 1% who earns over $1 million a year. Martha McSally pressed him and said, why don't you, since you complain about Trump's tax cut that benefited you, why don't you pay the 52% that you say you should? Bernie avoids the question, and he tries to then say Martha McSally should have to pay 52%. So here's Bernie Sanders on that Fox News town hall. Well, apparently, it's not popping up, so give me a second.
I'm asking you about the wealthy and how much higher you would make it. You said you don't agree with 70%. What would your number be?
In the campaign in 2016, we talked about 52%.
All right, so 52%. So would you be willing to pay 52% on the money that you made?
Also,
you can volunteer. You can send a check.
Oh, you can volunteer, too. We have a...
But you suggested that that's what everybody in your bracket should do.
And Martha, why don't you give? You make more money than I do.
Well,
why don't you give?
I didn't suggest a wealth tax.
And she's not running for president.
All right, but we're going to fight for a wealth tax. And we're going to demand that we end the absurdity where major corporation after major corporation. You know what?
Yeah,
in this tax bill that you are defending, families like the Koch brothers, of course you're defending it. Families like the Koch brothers get billions and billions of dollars in savings. That is absurd. Trump wants to repeal the entire estate tax. Huge tax breaks for billionaires. You got another question?
Well, we have many questions.
We have many questions.
And listen, we want to get substance. We want to get details.
Well, let's do it.
And the audience has a ton of questions, too.
All right.
Martha?
So our question comes from Kathy Harrington.
As you can see, Bernie did whatever he could to avoid answering that question. And he tried to then say, well, why don't you, Martha McSally, pay 52%? You make more than I do. Which is probably true that Martha McSally does, because the Fox News anchors do make quite a bit of money. However, Brett Breyer is right when he chimed in and said, well, she's not running for president. And Martha McSally herself is right by saying, well, I'm not the one who's proposing a wealth tax. Because Bernie Sanders has championed this wealth tax. He has championed that the wealthy need to be paying 52%. The exact people that Bernie Sanders is in that category. Now, Bernie Sanders, he has demonized the rich, which he claims he did it, and then he doesn't want to be the one living up to the standards he wants. Bernie Sanders has said the rich are trying to take advantage of every loophole they can get. That's exactly what Bernie Sanders has done. Which, by the way, he should have been paying more than 26%. He clearly took advantage of loopholes, because if you make that kind of money, you should have been paying in the 30-something%. Bernie Sanders is the largest hypocrite around. He's your normal socialist, because this actually works well and presents a lot of what a socialist is. A socialist is somebody who wants to have everyone else live under socialism while he, the elite government official, does not have to live in socialism and gets to live off of capitalistic wealth. But mainly off of your work, he takes your money. And he gets to live wealthy. Pretty much what Bernie Sanders has actually been doing his whole life. Finding any way not to do work. Now, Bernie Sanders, he also had more exposed on him when it comes to this tax return. So he released 10 years. Which he did live up to that. He released the last 10 years of his tax return. And this tax return showed, just like a socialist, Bernie Sanders is not very giving. So, Bernie Sanders does not donate much to charity. And keep in mind, this guy makes, in some years, over $1 million. He has ranged anywhere from less than 1% of his income to charity up to 4%. How insane is that? He's not donating much to charity at all. So here's a breakdown of his donations. And we have, if you look, in 2016, when Bernie Sanders ran, he made $1 million, just over $1 million. He only donated to charity $10,600. That was 1% of his income. 1%. And his lowest one was a 0.68 in 2012. He still made $280,000. And he only donated $1,900 to charity. His most recent years, when he made in 2017 $1.1 million, he donated only 3.2%, and it was only $36,000. And then he also donated only roughly the same this year when he made $500,000, but $18,000, but percentage-wise stayed the same. And his lowest year was his highest year was in 2014 when he made $205,000. He donated 4%, which was $8,000. So Bernie Sanders is an absolute hypocrite. As you can see, he goes in there and says, you need to worry about giving to the poor, or the ones who don't have a job or unwilling to work. We need to give them all of our money. Well, Bernie Sanders is donating to charity at a far less rate than the average citizen. Now, for instance, conservatives, religious conservatives at that, who attend church regularly, they tithe. Now, tithing is a charitable donation. We tithe at a 10% roughly, contingent on your financial situation, but typically you tithe close to 10% of your income. Probably on the low end, 5%. Either way, on the low end, a conservative, religious conservative, is donating more to charity than Bernie Sanders is donating to charity at his best year. The dollar-wise that I just showed you, my wife and I are going to donate more to charity dollar-wise than probably 7 of them years. 7 of them years we'll be donating more dollar-wise than Bernie Sanders. And I promise you, we make far less than Bernie Sanders does. It's insane. Insane that he is unwilling to hand over his money. But he wants to take your money. He wants to take 50% of your income to give to charity. Because he feels good he feels generous with your money. He's not generous with his money. That is what a socialist is. That's exactly what they are. And that's what they always have been. And this is why we gotta reject socialism to the fullest, because that's really all it comes down to is they are stingy, greedy people. We on the right and religious conservatives are very kind, generous people with our money. We just don't like the government taking it from us. We like to actually give money to people because it feels good to give without force. But of course, many, in particular my generation, the millennial generation, don't seem to grasp this and want to keep going down the socialist path that we're on. Now, President Trump, though, calls out Fox News for this, having Bernie Sanders on their town hall and kind of chumming it up with him. President Trump actually calls out Fox News for their trend towards the left. Now, I've been calling out Fox News myself for their trend to the left, but the fact that the president, who has been, Fox News is probably the mainstream channels most friendly to Trump, the fact that he's calling you out is not a good thing. So here's a tweet from President Trump. So weird to watch Crazy Bernie on Fox News. Not surprisingly, Brett Baer and the audience was so smiley and nice. Very strange. And now we have Donna Brazile. And for those of you who don't know, Donna Brazile was the Democrat operative that fed Hillary Clinton the questions in her primary against Bernie Sanders. Now, I want to point out that Trump noted about the audience being so spry and happy with Bernie Sanders. That is true, except for the fact, though, because the left-wing media ran with it and said, oh, Fox News people are happy with Bernie Sanders. That was all Bernie Sanders supporters. Not many conservatives are showing up to a Bernie Sanders town hall. Don't get me wrong. If I had the opportunity to, if Bernie Sanders came near me, I probably would go to a Bernie Sanders town hall. I would assume he would probably also kick me out because I'm conservative, and we know he doesn't actually allow conservatives at his town halls. But it's not that the audience actually was conservatives and they embraced Bernie Sanders. These are radical leftists who are there, who are already Bernie supporters. Now, Fox News, he is calling out because they were very chummy with Bernie Sanders, and they seem like they were afraid to really ruffle his feathers. Unlike what CNN and MSNBC does whenever they have a Republican on, they do whatever they can to get under their skin. Trump is right. Fox News has drifted to the left, and that's exactly why I launched PCV TV in order to combat not having right-wing news. We need somebody that's pro-right-wing news, pro-conservative values, and that's what we're giving you. And Trump points out that this is exactly what's going on. We've been saying it probably for the last year with our hires, but this is all very true and very alarming and concerning that our one mainstream media outlet we had has left us. Now our only options are here on the internet. So, I mean, to help out, I think you need to try to share these PCV TV with your friends, conservative friends, and try to help grow this channel in order to have a refuge for conservative followers that need to have a news outlet. President Trump, though, goes on. He goes on to continue to go after Ilhan Omar, and he gives this interview. As we know, Ilhan Omar and President Trump, they're kind of not seeing eye to eye at the moment. President Trump has called Ilhan Omar out for her 9/11 comments, which were where she said something happened by some people at a KR event, which KR is a terrorist organization that supports Hamas. She was speaking there doing fundraising, yet she's still in Congress, and Democrats won't call her out for this. So President Trump is asked, though, about his video he sent out bashing Ilhan Omar for her comments. And President Trump did not hold back. He ends up calling Ilhan Omar unpatriotic. So, during an interview with Minnesota at KSTP News, Trump said, "She's got a way about her that's very bad, I think, for our country. I think she's extremely unpatriotic and extremely disrespectful to our country." President Trump is 100% accurate on this. Ilhan Omar is extremely unpatriotic and very disrespectful. This woman hates America and the West. I mean, it's undebatable. Listen to how she speaks. She hates the West and she hates America. And she's also very disrespectful to 9/11 to call it something committed by some people. Again, I've said this many times, that was one of the greatest tragedies in American history that you just downplayed. So Trump continues in this interview and he says, "Look, she's been very disrespectful to this country. She's been very disrespectful, frankly, to Israel. She is somebody that doesn't really understand, I think, life. Real life, what it's all about." Again, Trump is hitting this on the nose. Ilhan Omar really doesn't understand life. And she is very disrespectful to Israel in the way she spews her anti-Semitic statements towards Israel. This woman does not belong in Congress, and I think this is pretty much what Trump's point is. And he was asked, would he take down his video, or does he kind of regret putting the video up? And he responds, no, not at all. President Trump has a backbone. We have not seen this in a Republican president, in quite some time. But President Trump, he's doing something that we haven't really got to witness in quite some time. When he's getting called out on situations that the left does not like, he does not back down. He actually takes it more to them, takes the fight more to them. And he's being unapologetic, because the one thing is, you cannot apologize to the left. When you bend a knee to that rage mob, they're coming at you even harder. That's why they don't ever win against Trump. Trump never bends the knee to the rage mob. He doubles down and he goes at you twice as hard. And that's why the left keeps losing to Trump, because they don't know how to react. And that's why I hope everyone knows to never bend a knee to the rage mob, because once you do, they'll destroy your life. They will come at you with everything they got. But when you don't bend that knee to the rage mob, they tire themselves out. They leave you alone. I mean, look how many times they tried to go after Chick-fil-A and it never works, because Chick-fil-A never bends a knee. Chick-fil-A always increases in their sales and their stock value whenever they're attacked. And that's why you got to make sure you never bend a knee. And that's what I'm hoping we can promote here on Preserve Conservative Values Television. But we're going to take a break here, go ahead, commercial break, and I'll see you back in a couple minutes. Alright, we're back again, and there is a challenger to the Republican primary in 2020 against President Trump. And it is none other than this Fruit Loop, Bill Weld. It blows my mind that somebody is actually going to be stupid enough to try to primary out President Trump. Bill Weld announced he will be primarying Trump in 2020, and he did it with a stupid video, which I'm not going to play, because it's actually irritating. Bill Weld is a former governor of Massachusetts, and he was appointed by Reagan, but it was a different time with that Republican Party. Now, I don't disagree with Bill Weld's stances politically. I just think that he's a weak, backboned individual. Bill Weld ran in the Libertarian Party in 2016 as the vice president to Gary Johnson. Now, Bill Weld and Gary Johnson are part of the reasons why I personally have distanced myself a little bit from the Libertarian Party, because yes, I do embrace their ideas as far as conservative values and libertarian values do align, but these guys are absolutely terrible for the fight against socialism. The Libertarian Party has been harmful to this fight against socialists because they keep going after Republicans, they keep going after Trump, and they're doing whatever they can to pander to the left a little bit. And people like Bill Weld need to step back and not run against President Trump. Now, unfortunately, I was actually going to vote in the primaries, in the Democrat primaries, because I wanted to strategically vote in order to help President Trump win in 2020. But now Bill Weld is running, and we have to vote in the primary. Now one of us can sit out to make sure Trump wins the primary. I personally was hoping to be able to go in, vote in Bernie Sanders. I know that sounds crazy, people. I know that sounds crazy. But I was actually going to strategically vote Bernie Sanders if no one primaried Trump, because Trump would destroy Bernie Sanders in a national election. We really didn't want Pete Buttigieg to be the one who runs against Trump, because that actually could be risky if Trump could beat Pete Buttigieg. However, now unfortunately, we will have to go out and vote and make sure Trump wins the primary. And the left, they will potentially have a little group of people that vote in the primary and the Republicans to try to dethrone Trump. So you're going to have to show up. You're going to have to make sure you vote in President Trump in the primaries. Bill Weld is literally just harming the Republican Party because now we have to focus on the stupid primary. And people like him just irritate the crap out of me because there shouldn't be a primary. So, let's move on, though, to other leftist Fruit Loops. They're trying to gun grab their way to the top. Duke Nukem himself, Eric Swalwell, we are all Eric Swalwell, as he likes to claim. Or Eric Swalwell is all us. Duke Nukem wants to go in, and if he was to win 2020, which he announced, Eric Swalwell, he's a congressman from California, if you didn't know. He has announced he's going to go after assault weapons. Again, assault weapons is a pretty broad term, not well defined, not actually a real thing either, because everything's an assault weapon. And it's so broad that nearly every single gun, if not every single gun, actually falls into the category of what an assault weapon is, because it's very ill-defined, and there is no such thing. So, Eric Swalwell says he's going to remove these, and if you do not turn in your guns, he will jail you. So, he goes on to State of the Union to talk on CNN with Jake Tapper, and Swalwell he stated that we should ban possession of military-style semi-automatic weapons. We should buy back such weapons from all who choose to abide by the law. And we should criminally prosecute any who choose to defy it by keeping their weapons. So many things wrong here. First of all, military-style semi-automatic weapons. That's not a thing that is legal. I assume he means the AR-15, and if that's the case, I challenge Eric Swalwell, Duke Nukem, to go sign up in the military, bring an AR-15 into combat, and tell me if that is a military-style semi-automatic. Not to mention, these are not automatic guns. The AR-15, that's a one trigger, one shot. One trigger, one shot. It's not a spray. And these morons are wanting to take away our guns. They don't even know what the heck they're wanting to take away. Literally what he's describing is either one of two things. A, with the military style semi-automatic, it's either he means, again, broad term, take away all guns, or B, he just defines something that has already been banned. And I argue that we actually should be allowed to own any weapon that the military is allowed to own, because that's what the Founding Fathers intended. Now, he also, though, goes in and says, mandatory buybacks, and if you don't hand over your guns, that is going to be jail time. He will prosecute you. We literally have a Second Amendment. If you do not remove the Second Amendment, how are you legally allowed to imprison anybody off of a broad term of guns for not turning over their guns? And not to mention, does the Second Amendment actually give us the right to defend ourselves in this case, that we could not be prosecuted? So if they were to come with guns, to take our guns, and we fire back at them, could we actually be prosecuted, is my question. Because legally we have the Second Amendment right that is there to fight back against the tyrannical government. So if you were to do this, does this potentially make the entire Constitution and federal government negated? Do we no longer have contracts? And if so, are we at war? And I don't think Eric Swalwell, Duke Nukem, understands this. Now, Duke Nukem, the reason why I call him Duke Nukem, let's have a new reminder here. So, Eric Swalwell decided to get on Twitter a few months ago, and he decided to respond back to some conservative who said, so basically, Swalwell wants a war, because that's what you would get. You are out of your effing mind if you think I'll give up my rights and give the government all the power. And then Swalwell responds, and it would be a short war, my friend. The government has nukes, too many of them. But they are legit. I'm sorry, if we talked we could find common ground to protect our families and communities. Yeah, he threatened to take us out with the nukes if we don't turn over our guns. So, Duke Nukem will either nuke us or imprison us if we don't hand over our guns. You better make sure you guys vote. Because I have been saying this for a while. I think the Democrats are about this close to pulling us conservatives out of our homes and putting a bullet in the back of our heads, because this is exactly what they do in these communist nations takeover. They take you out in the middle of the night and put a bullet in the back of your head. What Eric Swalwell literally proposed is this close to doing the same exact thing. If you don't vote, shame on you. If you don't vote, shame on you. I don't care how little you dislike a Republican candidate, vote. You vote for that Republican candidate. You do not vote third party. You do not vote Democrat. If you want to keep your rights, you are opposing these freaks like a Duke Nukem at every cost. Now, Kamala Harris, Miss I smoked weed in high school, the music songs and rappers that, well, college, that weren't even in mainstream yet while she was in college. Kamala Harris goes out and gets questioned. She is also championing removing guns. She was questioned about if she owned a gun, and she hypocritically wants the gun for protection because she needs protection, but we don't. So here's Kamala Harris.
Kind of how you see gun policy or how that view has evolved. I am a gun owner, and I own a gun for probably the reason that a lot of people do, for personal safety. I was a career prosecutor. And in terms of gun policy, though, I think that for too long and still today, we are being offered a false choice, which suggests you're either in favor of the Second Amendment or you want to take everyone's guns away. It's a false choice, and it is, I believe, a false choice that is born out of a lack of courage from leaders who must recognize and agree that there are some practical solutions to what is a clear problem in our country. And part of the practical solution is to agree that we need smart gun safety laws, which include universal background checks, which include a renewal of the assault weapons ban, period.
Thanks. And last one, Lauren.
Hi, Senator.
It just goes to show the hypocrisy here. This is exactly what's happening, people. First of all, her stance on banning guns that she tries to say, we're not trying to take your guns, we're just trying to be common sense, whatever, that the typical slang they use. Her stance on guns is banning AR-15s and banning assault weapons. That's her phrase. That's what she says. Again, assault weapons is a broad term that could be applied to every single gun in existence. It is not a real term, and people who know guns, and I'm not saying I'm a gun expert because I am far from it, but that's not a real thing. So, she is saying she gets to have a gun, but you don't get to have a gun. Eric Swalwell, Duke Nukem, he gets to have a gun, and if you have a gun, he'll jail you. That's the Democrat Party. And Bernie Sanders, his high taxes socialist policies, if you refuse to pay them, he'll jail you. It's tyranny, people. This is tyranny. This is not what the founders wanted out of our country. And if we don't stand up to this, America's one election away from losing everything. If Democrats win and take power, I don't know what to say. I mean, there'll be nothing left for us. They'll censor us on our last platform, which is here on the internet. They'll come for us here first. Take our guns. Force us to pay high taxation. Really, we're just going to become slaves. and this country will never be able to rebound from it, and we'll be doomed. So you got to make sure you go out and vote. I mean, the stakes are ridiculously high. It might be one of the highest stakes we've ever had. It may be like this just going forward for the next 20 years. However, the Democrats, though, they keep getting a little bit more anti-Semitic as time goes, the left. And the universities is where it's showing a lot. So, Ami Horowitz, who's a conservative filmmaker, he went undercover to this Duke, North Carolina University meeting where they really spewed pretty anti-Semitic stuff. That's what centered around. So apparently, though, these leftists from University of North Carolina and Duke actually found something they agree on, which, if any of you don't know, these two colleges hate each other. But apparently they're able to bond over anti-Semitism and their hatred for Jews. So here's Ami Horowitz with that undercover video, which is quite appalling.
I'm Ami Horowitz, and I'm here on the campus of the University of North Carolina, where UNC and Duke are holding a joint conference on the conflict in Gaza. So I came here to get a sense of the perspectives of the people attending the conference. This was a major conference with hundreds of students, professors, and administrators who spent a weekend bashing Israel and whitewashing the terrorist organization Hamas. If it only stopped there. This is a professor who I asked about her views on the spate of attacks in New York by black teens on Jews and synagogues.
Blacks have a lot of also reason to be angry at Jews now.
The conference wouldn't allow me to film inside, so my sound guy set me up with a hidden mic. With very little prodding, the veneer of being anti-Israel in an effort to hide their hatred of Jews was easily scratched away and devolved into open anti-Semitism. I first asked them about the most powerful modern anti-Semitic trope. Does Jewish money control U.S. government policy?
U.S. government policy? Oh, absolutely. You guys, not you guys. Jewish lobbyists are very rich.
The Jewish lobby is influencing our government and how that's changing U.S. policy. That's why I'm
historically known for everyone.
With you on that one.
They're influencing our politics.
You know, the money rules the world.
Yeah.
No, meaning like makes the decisions.
I appreciate your courage.
Oh, this is interesting what you are doing. Really?
Yeah.
Impressive.
I'm Jewish. I don't know.
I could already tell. You didn't have to tell me.
I don't take offense to that at all.
No, I mean,
I appreciate people who are questioning their own background.
Look at the treatment of Ethiopian Jews, right? Jews that are supposedly in the club, but they're Ethiopian, they're black. Refugees who come to Israel, assuming it's a Jewish state, have actually been sterilized in the past. Or
you're telling me that the Jewish government sterilized Ethiopian Jews coming into Israel?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And then the featured entertainment for the event came on stage. He proceeded to, well, let's let the video do the talking.
Anti-Semitism, yeah, okay. So this is my example. I know it sounds R&B stuff, but don't think of Rihanna when you sing it. Think of don't think of Beyonce. Think of Mel Gibson.
Oh my God.
Go that anti-Semitic. Let's try it together because I need your help. I cannot be anti-Semitic alone. Oh, I'm in love with the Jew. Oh, I love the Jew. Oh, I love the Jew. I love the Jew. You look beautifully anti-Semitic.
I have to ask you to leave.
Why?
The director does not want interviews to be conducted, so we're not going to ask you to leave. And if you don't, I have to call the police.
Are we causing trouble?
We don't understand what your intentions are.
We're still asking you to leave the premises, sir.
Just days after the conference, swastikas were found on campus. 38 of the largest departments and schools at the University of North Carolina sponsored this event. It also got a federal grant of nearly $250,000. They should all be ashamed.
That should disgust all of us watching that. And not to mention, as he points out, that is taxpayer funded. That is taxpayer funded for these universities to spew absolute hatred. And keep in mind, Ami Horowitz is a Jewish person himself. Now, Betsy DeVos, who's Trump appointed in charge of education, she is launching an investigation since this video broke out for public to see. And there may be some serious repercussions that these universities face that are using public taxpayer money to promote absolute hatred. Yet universities are kicking conservative speakers off, saying it's hate speech. But promoting this, I guess it's hate speech to really just say common sense things. For instance, Michael Knowles, who was assaulted on campus for saying men are not women. And the campus university dean bashed him for that, saying he's bigoted and anti-trans and not our values. So Knowles gets attacked for that and assaulted by the dean then, attacked by a student, assaulted by a dean, and they find this acceptable. This bigotry of hating Jewish people, they find acceptable. But to say a man is not a woman, unacceptable. We have lost. We are losing America at quick, high rates. We need to go to these universities and demand every single professor that even slightly bends to the left should be fired. I would even go as far to say any professor that has ever voted for Democrats should be fired in their lifetime. I don't even care how extreme of a statement this is. I've seen what they're doing on college campuses. I have been there recently. I'm not that far removed from college life. The teachers there are radical leftists propagandizing and brainwashing students, and they promote this crap on us. All of them should be fired at the collegiate level, the high school level, grade school level. The most you could be maybe against conservatives is you can be a George Bush Republican. That's all I would allow you. If we had any integrity in this country. But of course we don't. And nothing will ever be done. Now, let's go ahead and see though, because the Michael Knowles being attacked, that's going to be our leftist Fruit Loop. So let's go ahead and get into that one. Oh, Trigglypuff. I love Trigglypuff. So, Michael Knowles, he was giving a speech in Kansas City, Missouri, about men are not women. And during this speech, there was a protest plan to go against his bigotry, is what they called it, and to protest him on 10 minutes of sitting there making noise and then walk out silently. However, that didn't turn out that way. Michael Knowles, who I love, he's a 29-year-old, 30-year-old conservative who has his own show on the Daily Wire called The Michael Knowles Show. Michael Knowles is an interesting person. I like him a lot. He kind of triggered that crowd by calling them out on this protest because he got wind. So Michael Knowles then gets them riled up. They leave then after 20 minutes of making noise. They leave, and one of these leftist Fruit Loops goes in and shoots Michael Knowles with a substance from a water gun. The substance was a chemical, smelled like bleach, and no one knew what it was. Now, it turns out the substance was not harmful, and it was they made it smell like bleach, but was not any chemicals actually. But the person did get charged with assault, and he's lucky he didn't actually use bleach or any chemical because would have upped by a few more charges. So here's one of the clips I'm going to show you of this masked shooter that decided to attack Michael Knowles. Hands up, don't shoot. You hear that? Hands up, don't shoot. The lie that is spewed from Michael Brown, from Missouri, Ferguson, Missouri, that claimed hands up, don't shoot, which ended up being a complete lie and debunked. But anyways, you saw that leftist get tackled by the police. The police did a great job stopping them. But it seemed like them leftists were upset. The police were preventing them leftists from assaulting somebody for speaking. Now, here's a more interesting video. I just like it because the cops are just going at this kid pretty hard, and he looks like a little girl getting arrested. So here's this clip. Well, I don't know what goes through these people's heads, but I also don't know, like, do these students think they were going to be able to blend in? I'm pretty sure we know what these leftist Fruit Loops look like. You don't look like us conservatives. You all have a weird look to you. You got that, for men, you got that small jawline. You look like, well, I mean, I guess they look like why they are confused about which gender they are. So I guess that kind of makes sense. The women, weirdly, the women kind of look like they can beat up their men in the leftist side. Well, sucks for them. Anyways, I need to get some sleep. I'm getting kind of tired, guys. So, I'll see you bright and early tomorrow, 8 a.m. sharp, and let's get to it.